Hi, it's Keith from the Evangelical Free Church, Stony Stratford, and we're continuing our series in the Gospel of Luke. And today we come to Luke chapter 9, verses 37 to 45. After the mountaintop experience where three of the disciples, Peter, James and John, had seen Jesus transfigured and saw him in his glory, it's back to reality. They come down the mountain. What's happened? There's a man there who wants his son healed. He wants an evil spirit cast out because his son is possessed by it. But the disciples can't handle it. But there's something else here. Amidst all the healing and everything like that, the disciples are distracted, firstly by the fact they can't heal the boy, but also by something else which we'll get onto in a minute. It's very easy to be distracted. I've often noticed if I'm watching a film or something, if something just makes me sort of tune out for a second, getting a cup of tea or something like that, or someone says something, you can miss a plot point and you're sort of trying to catch up as to why the plot isn't making as much sense as you first thought it was going to. Well, we see here that demonic possession is extremely real. This child is in a terrible state. The father says that, verse 39, the spirit seizes him and he suddenly screams. It throws him into convulsions, so he foams at the mouth. It scarcely ever leaves him. It is destroying him. This is something to note. Satan is active and he hates God's creation. Hence the destructive nature we see here. And this is opposition to Christ. Fruitless opposition, as we'll see, but nevertheless opposition. But the problem is, the man's gone to the disciples. He actually says that he begged his disciples to drive it out, but they could not. Jesus' reply is interesting. Verse 41, "O unbelieving and perverse generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." Well, we note two things, as I said. Firstly, when the son comes to Jesus, immediately he's thrown to the ground. This is Satan's destructive nature again. And actually the term here used in the Greek, it's a wrestling term. It's that violent. But secondly, it's this: Jesus has authority. We read second part of verse 42, "But Jesus rebuked the evil spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to his father." Note that. Jesus just has to say a word. That's it. He doesn't have to do anything more than that. It's not like the Satan or the devil in Hollywood films where he's seen to be incredibly powerful. Jesus says the word and Satan has to depart. It's as simple as that. But while everything is calming down, we note that they were all amazed at the greatness of God, Jesus has this to say to his disciples, verse 44. "Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men." But we read on, verse 45, "But they did not understand what he meant. It was hidden from them, so that they did not grasp it. And they were afraid to ask him about it." Do you know, I think this is a key thing in the passage, but we can get distracted by the miracles. The miracles testify to Christ's authority. He's acting exactly as you would expect God to act in his world. There's nothing that gets in the way. There's nothing that stops his purpose. As I said, one word and the spirit departs. But his disciples can't follow that. They can't follow that Jesus has come to lay down his life to become a substitute for our rebellion against God. That's what sin is. But here's the interesting thing. For someone with supreme authority, Jesus acts in a completely unusual way. Paul, when he's writing to the Philippians church, writes this. This is from Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 to 8. "Your attitude should be the same of that of Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance of a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. There's several things to note there. The word in the Greek for servant is doulos. That literally means bondslave. Jesus made himself completely accountable to his Father's will, despite the fact he is in very nature God. He took the role of a servant. He gave up his rights. Why? So that he might become the substitute for our sin. The phrase even death on a cross is an interesting one. Paul uses it here, and I can't help almost feel that there's a shudder, a metaphorical shudder in his writing, because in Deuteronomy, the book of the law, Deuteronomy 21:23, it says, "Cursed is everyone who's hung on a tree." That would be the equivalent of a cross. They would be cursed by God. That's what Jews saw the cross as. And here's the thing, isn't it? Jesus takes the curse. He takes our punishment for our sin, and he serves as a substitute. Now that's incredible. Have you ever really thought about that? That's my challenge to you today. Because it can mean that we can start again with a clean slate if we accept that. We accept Jesus as substitute. We come and God will count our sin no longer against us. In fact, we start again. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much for listening. Please consider what I've said, and I'll catch up with you in the next video. Take care.